So in some of the earlier applications, we're gluing a piece of meat to itself, or gluing several pieces of meat to themselves. What we began to wonder in the kitchen is, rather than gluing something to itself, could we reshape it by actually pureeing it completely and adding the enzyme? And it turns out that you can. So in this case, we've taken shrimp, we're pureeing it with a bit of salt, a bit of cayenne, and not making a slurry this time. We're not using GS, we're using Activa RM, which is better suited to sprinkling. We're sprinkling that into the shrimp and making more or less sort of an old-fashioned farce. We're not adding any cream or egg whites or anything like that in the traditional sense, because we don't want to dilute the flavor of the end product. But we're simply pureeing the shrimp. We're going to add a little bit of shrimp oil to it, made from the heads.
So in terms of what we're actually seeing here happen is we have to get the enzyme into solution. When we pureed the shrimp, shrimp still nonetheless is basically mostly water. You have the muscle fiber that we basically pureed, and you've added the enzyme to this base with shear. You have gotten the enzyme into solution, and now the enzyme is looking to create covalent bonds. You don't have an unlimited time window to actually do this. If you're not careful, I assume you can glue the shrimp to itself in a pretty unappealing.
Well, what we're doing now is we're actually passing it through a tammy, pulling some of the fibrous material of the shrimp out, making a smooth, homogeneous, uniform farce that is going to help the mouthfeel, going to make it feel more like an actual pasta, more like a noodle. But yes, you do have to work quickly, because if you were to leave this a farce where it is now, in the state that it's in, and come back half an hour, 45 minutes later, it will have begun to set, and it would be
keep
a problem.
whatever shape it finds itself in.
Yeah, but what we're going to do now is we're going to take a little bit of oil that we make from the heads and the carcasses, and paddle that in to the meat to give it a little bit of flavor, and to also give the texture of the noodle a little bit of elasticity.
You know, the addition of fat into any system like this, we see it in all kinds of different, in making a flan or something like that, or a creme brulee. The addition of fat softens things, changes the texture. We're creating a three-dimensional matrix of protein bonded to protein. With a little bit of fat in there, you can plasticize it, make it a little softer. This is ultimately the goal, the aesthetic goal, is to create a noodle. And noodles are not, noodles need to bend.
Yeah, and the oil helps to that end. And so we're going to put all that farce with the oil into a bag, and then we're going to put that basically into an extruder, a very small extruder, and through chemical shear, it's going to come out homogenized. You're going to see in a second as we extrude it into the water bath. But first we have to put it into this noodle maker. This is just a traditional Japanese noodle maker.
So we could theoretically cut a hole in the bottom of the bag and just drop it into a heating bath, but in this case we're creating a particular dye, a particular size of noodle.
Yeah, and we're actually improving the texture by forcing it through that very small dye.
Yeah, in a way you're homogenizing. You know,
yes.
You're forcing the oil into smaller droplets, much like you homogenize milk, full-fat milk.
Sausage making, etc. And so now we're going to extrude it into a bath at a very specific temperature for good reasons.
We had talked about in different environmental conditions that govern enzymatic behavior. In this case, temperature is one of those. When you have an enzyme and you glue it and you put it in the fridge and let's set, it's a slow reaction. In this case, at over 50 degrees Celsius, you drop the noodle into that bath, the enzyme works and works and works very quickly, and you create a physical texture. You've changed the architecture of that puree.
And to finish the dish, it's a noodle made of shrimp. We serve it with a little bit of actual shrimp, some tomato sauce, some fried garlic, and some basil. So it's familiar flavors in an unfamiliar form.